Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Whole Wellness Mama Summit, where we're unlocking the healthiest, joy filled mom in you using strategies from various wellness and parenting experts. I'm your host, Amy Nesbitt, and I'm thrilled to be discussing the importance of finding delight in parenting again with Dajana Yoakley, with whom I recently participated in her Raising Resilient Kids Summit. She's a
Mhm.
certified peaceful parenting coach and educator that champions self compassion in parenting, which is so important. Trained by experts like Dr. Laura Markham and Dr. Lawrence Cohen, and with a decade of corporate leadership experience, she brings us deep understanding of relational dynamics to parenting. So she founded Delight in Parenting to offer parents tools for fostering respectful and loving relationships with their children. She's also a mother of three and relates personally to these parenting challenges. It is always such a delight to talk anything parenting with you, Diana. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah. Some are meeting you for the first time, so I'd love for you to share your story of how you came to where you are now.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I've had an interesting background. So you mentioned in my bio that I had worked for about 10 years in corporate America. I used to work in the hospital system as one of the top administrators in like at a hospital level. And so I was familiar with the day-to-day balancing of having small children while working, like a leader position that required long hours and just the struggle of balancing that. And that all was happening. And I had my first child, and then I had my second child. And it just became kind of like a tipping point for me where I was looking for a little bit more balance. I wanted to show up differently in parenting. And it was really hard on just my nervous system and the stress to maintain excellence in both. And when I do something, I try to do it like, with kind of the model of like, okay, how can I show up the best that I can here, right? So it's really hard to like to balance putting in the hours as a leader in a facility that would be kind of highly recommended, as a manager, to be there, on boots on the ground in your role, at the same time showing presence with your children, because we know that the biggest present you can give your kids is the time you spend with them. And so it was really hard for me to balance this. And at some point, I just decided, after my second one was about a toddler, that I was going to make a shift to balance the scales a little bit more, right? So while I love working, and I work today again, but from a different place, it's a little bit more of a flexible environment for me where I can dedicate a larger chunk of my time with my kids compared to work. And this is really something I keep in mind while the kids are little. This is the only time period that they're going to want me around. When they're
Yeah.
teenagers and then into young adulthood, they're going to be like, mom, of course they
Yeah.
still keep you like kind of in the background constantly as their parent, as the safety net, but they just don't need as much face time. And so once, they transition into that age group, I'll be getting back into the workforce more fully. But yeah, so what I did is I was like, what am I going to do now that I'm like kind of a stay-at-home mom, and I was working some part-time jobs in higher education teaching as a professor. It's like I can put some more stuff on my plate in terms of work. So I was like, I love working and learning about parenting. And I was already practicing peaceful parenting because I follow Dr. Laura Markham, who's the founder of Peaceful Parenting, for my own kids. And I wanted to start to master that. I was like, okay, I want to really master these concepts of peaceful parenting. And so I trained under her as a parenting coach, and then trained with Dr. Larry Cohen, who's the author of Playful Parenting and How Does Play and Presence and kind of showing up with more calm and patience for your kids all relate. And so since then, I founded my own organization, Delight in Parenting. And the name really came to me because it's like this idea of like when you first like find out you're having a child, or you bring a child into your world through adoption or other means, right? There's just this sense of delight. Like there's this like, oh, like we're gonna have a baby, or we're gonna bring this child into our life. And it's just that this sense of like delighting in the fact that like you're expanding your family, and you're so like filled with joy. And the day to day, like the days are long, but the years are short of parenting, sometimes like put that in a faraway corner of our mind, right? The
Yes.
delight. So I'd love to bring more of that into like my own life and other people's lives. Like, how can we enjoy our children more while they're still around us? Like I said, as they get older, they become more independent. and we enjoy them in a different relationship. But when they're so little, they're like craving our attention, right? And um, I'd love to be able to just show up with more presence and patience and a desire to play when they're seeking us out. Um,
I'm
yeah,
glad
so
you
that's kind
mentioned
of my yeah. Mhm.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you mentioned that our relationship changes because I feel like I and a lot of my friends say, right, my mom friends say, "Oh, when they're teenagers and they don't wanna hang out with us anymore." It's just this thing that we say, but I want to help us build those relationships now so it's not this, right, like,
Yes,
breaking that we think it's going to be. It's just a change because they become more independent, which is what we want them to be.
right.
And we just have a different relationship with them that is not as attention requiring, as you said. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, and I think what naturally happens is they become more peer oriented in that age because biologically they're primed for building attachments with other people in the world, and then eventually finding their own like partner, right? So they're like practicing on their friends and expanding their network of safe people in their life, which when you look at the Harvard study on the happiest people in the world, the longest study on happiness, the number one predictor of happiness across like 100 years almost in the study said people that have the more close relationships you have in your life, the happier you are. It was that social human interaction. And so we want our kids to build safe relationships with other people, but that like mathematically means that you have to then start dividing the time that they have, right? They're going to have the more people they have in their life that they're attached to, the less time they're going to be able to like linearly dedicate to just your relationship, right? Which, we kind of grieve that, a little bit too, but it's kind of overall it's actually a good thing for them.
Yeah, and I love that you share the importance of other people in their lives, and I know I have realized already the importance of other caring adults in their lives also, not just peers,
Mhm.
but at some
Yes.
point, their relationship with their parents, right? They're not going to want to come to us for everything, but the importance of other adults there as well, is
Mhm.
really, really important.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I can kind of give you the framework of like what does peaceful parenting mean? I think sometimes there's a little bit of a misunderstanding when people hear peaceful parents. They think that you have to show up perfectly peaceful all the time. Um, and so really what peaceful parenting really is, it's more mindful parenting, more present parenting. And what does that mean even? It's like, well, can I be like, am I really actually here in this room right now, like consciously realizing what's happening, whether it's feeling like it's perfect or not, whether it's a mess or not? Like, can I see what's actually, am I consciously like, am I kind of just like walking through my life with my eyes closed and just doing it on repeat? Or am I like, oh, like I can actually make a choice. If I want to do something different, I have the sense of mindfulness and awareness to change it. And so peaceful parenting means showing up with that sense of mindfulness and like presence and being aware, like emotional intelligence wise, like what you're bringing to the table with your own emotions and supporting your kids and handling their emotions. And so when we show up with dysregulation, overwhelm, burnout, stress, irritation,
Oh,
we
so
are
much,
mindful
guys.
of it. Yeah, we're mindful of it and we're like, okay, I just noticed like this is how I'm showing up. Now I have a choice once I'm mindful of it, right? Now I can choose like, do I want to like, discharge my anger on this person, or do I want to take a mommy time in and comfort myself? And we can talk about self-compassion because that's what I found to be the best antidote to this overwhelm and stress and dysregulation. But it's then we kind of have that fork in the road. We have a choice. And then we take responsibility for our behaviors, right? Just like we want our kids to take responsibility for their behaviors. We don't expect them to be perfect, but when they're the cause of a rupture in a relationship, we want them to learn to take responsibility. And nobody can take responsibility when they're feeling bad about themselves. This is the power of self-compassion. But yeah, we can talk more about that if you like.
Yeah, I'm glad you defined that for us because I feel like all of us go into parenting, right? Going, I want to be a peaceful parent. I don't want to be a yeller. I don't want to be all these things. And yet we find ourselves, once we become parents, not realizing what we should do. We have lack of sleep. And we just don't show up the way that we want to.
Right,
And so
right.
I'm glad you defined that for us as more mindful parenting and learning as we go and changing as we go. And yeah, I'd love to dive into self-compassion. That is your focus. I think we are our own worst critics. And so how can we help ourselves change that?
Yeah, yeah. So the way that Dr. Markham has founded peaceful parenting, she identifies these three big ideas. The first one is the parent shows up with self-regulation, with calm and patience, right? More often than not, as much as possible, but never perfectly because you're human. You have the ability to respond with fight or flight to protect yourself, right? And it's a survival thing. But sometimes our child looks like the enemy. And so those are the moments we want to kind of work on, but it's not there's never like a perfect you're never going to reach 100%. Just give it up. We're not going for perfectionism. We're going actually for love. We're going for love, not for perfectionism. So
Oh,
showing
I
up with
love that. Can we
self-regulation.
just pause? Can you
Yeah.
say that again for the people in the back?
Yeah. Yeah. So perfectionism is too low of a standard. Love is actually what we're going for, and it's even a higher standard than perfectionism because with perfectionism, you never get to develop the skill set of resilience with falling on your face and learning to get back up and actually seeing how much stronger you are than you thought, right?
Yeah.
And so it's this resilience which is founded on like, how do you support yourself? And support comes in the form of compassion and feeling love and feeling like you belong. And so that's what we're really trying to master, which is a much higher expectation than just showing up perfectly all the time, which is actually impossible anyway. So we just throw that out the window, right? So
And I feel like there's
when
also
we,
so much value in showing the people around you, especially your kids, how you can apologize or how you can recover from some of these things that you make mistakes in, right? Because we don't want
oh
them to
yeah,
think that their parents are perfect because we're not.
yeah, yeah. Think about how many times your child makes mistakes. Like
Yeah.
how many times does your child make mistakes on a regular basis? Because that they do because they're human.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how can I build skills for my child? Like what kind of skills does my child need to work on like when they make a mistake, right?
Mhm.
Well, the answer to that is what we do with ourselves, how we show up for ourselves. We role model what we want them to learn. And then we can actually, once we role model it, we're actually doing it and we learn what it takes. And then we become the masters of that resilience and repair. And then we can actually only teach it. We can't teach it if we're like a novice at repair and resiliency, you know?
And how many adults have a hard time saying sorry, right? Or having this
Yeah.
ability to repair things. And that's definitely a life skill that I want my kids to have. And I know all parents
Yeah.
out there want to give these emotional and life skills, right, to their children.
Yes. Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I think that's a point worth highlighting. I think the reason that people have a hard time saying sorry is because when they were children and they made a mistake, they were either like forced to say sorry or like
Yeah.
the other people involved never role modeled apologizing to them. So it's kind of a learned behavior. And what it created in them is in their childhood is a sense of shame, right? Like you make a mistake and you get in trouble and nobody's going to say like legitimately sorry out of a place of shame. You just can't. Like the repair comes from your prefrontal cortex, which is only like if you know about Dan Siegel's flipping the lid, you know,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
feeling shame, you flipped your lid. You're not going to be able to repair from shame, from a place of feeling shame. If you want your child to learn to repair, they have to be able to close the fight or flight response and bring the prefrontal cortex, which is the frontal part of the brain, back online, which is what peaceful parenting helps develop. It helps create more of an environment for the child to develop their prefrontal cortex faster. Um, and so when you meet that shame with compassion and self-compassion, you bring the prefrontal cortex back online so you can initiate repair. And so this is where the power of self-compassion. Dr. Kristen Neff and Dr. Christopher Germer, they're like the latest researchers on self-compassion. They've really taken it to like Dr. Kristen Neff was really like the kind of the name behind the framework. And self-compassion teaches us that we should be first we show up with mindfulness, like what am I feeling right now? Am I feeling a sense of shame that I didn't show up as the way that I wanted to, right? And then the second part is this common humanity, like I'm not the only one that ever has made a mistake like this. Like, I'm not the only person that feels bad like this. Other people have also felt shame before. You're in a group of others. You're part of actually the human species. Everybody can feel shame and everybody feels shame. The degree and the flavor of it might be different, but this is a common human emotion. And so we befriend it with this sense of like, you belong. Because what shame says, when you feel shame as a parent because you made a mistake, and you have a hard time saying sorry, shame is telling you you don't belong. Shame is like this social emotion. And it's like when we put ourselves in the minds of the other person judging us in a negative way. And we're telling ourselves that they're telling themselves this negative story about us. So it's this socially constructed emotion. And with self-compassion, we're saying, you know what? Like, we're changing the inner dialogue. You know what? Other people have felt like this before. You belong. You belong to the humanity. Like, everybody makes mistakes sometimes. Everybody feels bad sometimes. And then the third step of self-compassion is this self-kindness, which in peaceful parenting, we call it this like unconditional self-love that you would offer your child when they make a mistake. You always love them. Their behavior doesn't define their value. Your behavior, when you show up as a way that you didn't want to, doesn't define how lovable you are. They're two separate categories. Behaviors are skills and how you're taking action in the world, but your value is always 100% lovable, right? Like, you're always lovable no matter what. And so showing up for yourself, this is like what the self and self-compassion is. We would offer this to our children. So with self-compassion, we just make a U-turn. We have to learn this. This isn't something that we're generally taught in our society. Some parents do actually teach their kids this, but the majority don't, right? And so we have to practice this U-turn of like, I can offer this same compassion I would offer my friend that was struggling or my child that's struggling to myself. And the self-compassion that then we give ourselves then is like how we actually come back from overwhelm, dysregulation, burnout. What can I do now to support myself? Just like you would say to your friend, what can I do to help? Or
Mhm.
what is it that you need? Maybe you just need to feel heard. And that's usually the case with big emotions. But yeah, we just make a U-turn and turn it on ourselves. And that actually biologically, neurobiology wise, it downregulates the stress response. It brings the prefrontal cortex back online. We start to be able to see more perspective. We're not so tunnel vision, like constrictive in our view. We can start to see like, oh, my kid isn't a bad kid. In fact, they did this because they're a child, for one, with an immature brain. Like, their brain doesn't fully develop till age 26, for one. They mean well. Like, there's a sense of goodwill in my child. They don't want to be disconnected from me. They don't want to cause problems. That's not in their best interest. It's not in their survival. Their survival tells them to connect and to attach to a safe adult. So when they're misbehaving, it's actually like they're ringing the alarm bells. They're saying, I need help. I need help from a provider that cares about me, because I cannot help myself. And so we widen our lens when we're self-compassionate to ourselves first, and then we can see that our kid actually needs help. And then in peaceful parenting, the next step after self-regulation is we connect with our child. And then if we need to do any kind of coaching on appropriate behavior, setting limits with empathy, we move into that, and problem solving. But the self-regulation always comes first.
Yeah. I mean, how many times, right, are we like dealing with tantrums, just like, oh my gosh, why are they doing this? Or why are they doing this to us? Even, that
Yeah,
mentality.
exactly.
But I love that you said we need to see this as an alarm, as a help, as I need you to help me come back to normal, right? And
Yeah.
I know for myself as well, especially in the pandemic period, I had these like, oh my gosh, like I can't handle all this. Like when one thing happened and I just laid down, I said, Mom needs to lay down. I'm just gonna take a breath here. And I'd lay down for a bit. And I didn't think of it as I was closing that lid, but it is. It helps you come back to,
Hmm.
okay, it's okay. It's not a big deal. They're not trying to be mean. Let's all just take a breath here, figure it out, right? What's going on?
Yeah,
So
I love that. And yeah, and it's like what you're doing when you take a moment, you're almost like putting yourself in a timeout. So like timeouts with kids are actually not even effective and they're harmful for them. But if we put ourselves in like a time in or time out ourselves, whatever you want to call it, we're being compassionate still. Nobody's getting punished for inappropriate behavior or big feelings. But what we need is to like re-regulate our nervous system. And if we think about it in terms of like how nervous systems work, if you understand a little bit of like how children's brains work and your brain works when you're under overwhelm and overstimulation from too much like activity with the kids and their big feelings, it's a very biological like interaction, and it depersonalizes it then. It's like you said, it's like, why are they doing this to me? That is just like, it's kind of a learned, that's kind of like a learned thing that we say to ourselves just from like culture. But we can train ourselves to say to ourselves when we're feeling overwhelmed, my nervous system is just overwhelmed right now. Instead of they're doing this to me, it's like there's too much stimulus
Mhm.
and I can't handle this right now. My body actually needs to like remove itself from this situation so it can calm down and bring the prefrontal cortex back online, because it's like it's triggering my fight or flight response as the parent. And if your kid has big feelings, what's happening to them is they're being triggered into fight or flight, and they need somebody to help them down regulate that biological survival response that comes online when you feel threatened, right? It's like a threat to the nervous system. So yeah, I think learning about it a little bit like that really um, shifts us into becoming more peaceful, because we can understand that our child is not giving us a hard time, but is having a hard time.
Yeah. So you're a mom of three. Do your strategies to give yourself compassion change with the child or any sort of circumstance? Or is it just kind of, this is what I do? This is my normal practice. This is kind of my go to things when I'm feeling overwhelmed or even preventive, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think they're for me, the strategies are the same, and they actually work for any relationship that you have, because it's just based on the nervous system becoming dysregulated and self-compassion being the antidote to stress and anxiety, depression, overwhelm, it kind of all these mental health factors. Self-compassion like is the antidote to that. Um, and feeling, and parents are often so like shame triggered too, like based on our own like cultures and stuff, right? And so self-compassion is like the perfect antidote to shame. If you struggle with feelings of shame, or you suspect you might struggle with feelings of shame, self-compassion is a perfect antidote to that. But yeah, it doesn't change with the kids, because again, it's how I'm showing up.
Mhm.
What happens though is like when you start practicing being more self-compassionate and giving yourself some grace and being on your own side, like even if nobody else is on your side, being on your own side, like it's your soccer game and you're showing up for yourself on the sidelines. Because if you don't, who will? And that's the work of adulthood, right? Nobody's coming to save you. You are your own savior. Like you are the best bet for yourself, and you can actually do this. And if you feel like you don't have self-compassion for yourself and maybe you can't access it, that might be a slight clue that there's some shame there. Shame is very like deceptive. It like wants to hide. So it pretends like, oh, I don't need self-compassion. So if you kind of hear yourself thinking that, consider that might be some layers there. And self-compassion builds over time. The more you practice it, you just sit with the emotion, the more you feel like, okay, like now a little bit more is seeping in, now a little bit more seeps in. It's like we have to allow ourselves to give ourselves some love and receive it. We cannot, it's like we cannot receive other people's like love for us until we give it to ourselves first. It's like the big secret of relationships. It's so interesting. Like nobody teaches you this.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
mom guilt is such a huge thing, right? It is a term because moms carry this guilt, this shame that we're not doing enough no matter how much we do. And we do need to give ourselves some compassion, give ourselves space, give ourselves the ability, right, to go do things for
Mhm.
ourselves so that we can fill that tank for ourselves so that we can show up
Yeah.
better with this more present, compassionate mom.
Yes, and that's what I love about your work, because you're like supporting moms in putting themselves back on the to-do list. And that's what like the third question of self-compassion is, what can I do now to support myself? It's like saying like you're important too. You know, like you also matter, because unless your cup is like filled, you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Mm.
Like you cannot squeeze a ceramic to get water out of it. Like it's already been, you
Yeah.
know, baked in the oven. And so you've got to put water in the cup. And where are you filling this cup with? What are you filling it with? Like other relationships with other people that listen to you and understand you, activities that you delight in for yourself and enjoy. playing games with your kids that you like to play, like how are you filling that up so that later when everybody's pulling from once like to drink from your cup, you can be like, okay, you can have some. But then also noticing like we're getting low, like my gas
Mhm.
tank is running out. I need to pull over at a gas station and refill because if I don't, I'm going to end up in the breakdown lane. And now my options are limited and expensive. There's a higher price to pay than just going to the pump and refueling,
Mhm.
It's smarter. It's not, this guilt isn't actually smart. It doesn't help us. So if you want to be like smarter in your parenting and more intelligent, right? Emotionally intelligent, refill your nervous system with self, self-soothing and kind of fill your emotional needs really at the top of the list because and I know it's hard with kids, like they're pulling at you first thing when they wake up, but how can you like reorganize your day maybe where you still like, you know, it's like they want you to stop like so they can go play. Well, it's like, okay, first we're gonna go get the gas and then we can stop at the playground so you can play. So like maybe everybody still gets what they want,
Yeah.
but depending on the sense of urgency, like sometimes you're at the top, sometimes they're at the top, depending on who needs it first.
Yeah. I love how you shared that when you get low, you should notice, right? Because that awareness is so critical that
Yeah,
we are just running low and we're about to explode,
right. Right.
because I think we often talk about, and I often talk about, okay, we need to find those joys because we need to make sure our cups are fairly full when we start. But when we're hitting that low, we also need to realize, okay, I need to just take time for myself, or I need to step back
Right.
or let someone do things or whatever it is. So I love that.
Mhm.
So we like to end by giving everyone a quick action or challenge that they can do today so they can start taking action, start implementing some of the things that they've learned today. Do you have a quick action for people to take?
Yeah, I think I would say like start doing these like kind of self-compassion breaks. And Dr. Kristen Neff has a lot of like guided meditations you can download based on this. It's like a 5 minute self-compassion break, but really you can do this in like a couple of seconds. You can just pause and say, take a deep breath, like where are my feet? Where am I in space? Where am I located in this room? And then maybe you put your hand on your heart, like maybe try this like 5 times a day, randomly throughout the day. And like, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? You know, what do I need right now in this moment? If I could give myself something, what would I give myself? And just practice like shifting your mind and your thoughts to like taking care of you, like too. It's like, what do my kids need right now? They need to eat breakfast. They need to go play outside in nature to get that energy out. What do I need right now? Maybe I need to bring my tea out there when I go and maybe like a book. If I do have some moments to myself, I can read a little bit. Like what refuels me?
Oh, I love that because I think even in trying to do that, people are probably going to start doing the to-do lists, right? Of like,
Yeah,
okay, I
yeah.
need to do this, I need to do this. But I want people to give themselves compassion in this area too, that it's a
Yes.
building, it's a practice that you're building, right? So it's okay if your mind wanders from yourself to something else. I think it's totally natural as moms to do that, but hopefully
Yeah.
over time of practicing this, that it does become a filling thing and realizing what we need, because often we don't realize what we need, right? Maybe it's just that cup of water, or like maybe you're dehydrated, you
Yes.
don't even know. Yeah.
And each of those like moments of resistance where you start to do the to-do list instead, that is the opportunity to practice self-compassion. So it's amazing because you actually have an opportunity to practice that same thing you just did, but for this moment of difficulty. What do I need right now? Oh, I'm thinking about the do list. Oh, what do I need right now? To just take another deep breath and just relax into this moment.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm gonna pause. Sorry,
I
I
know we're
totally
gonna run out
forgot
of
to
time.
upgrade my Zoom.
You
So
want to
since
come back in,
time's
log back
out,
in?
um, like, can
I
I?
can just click the link to come back on.
Okay, can we do that then? I'm like, it's gonna time out
Yeah.
in like less than. I was like,
Yes,
shoot,
it
I
will.
forgot to do
Yeah,
this.
no, it's good. Yeah,
Okay,
it's good. Let's
okay,
just log out and log back in. Yeah, and we can
okay,
finish up with the freebie and stuff. Yeah.
okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
So we know you have a fantastic freebie for everyone. Can you share what that is and how people can connect with you further?
Yeah, so I have a freebie, which is a 30-day free ticket to get into my membership site. So I have a Delight in Parenting membership for parents that want to get some additional support. And so if you're struggling, you don't need the guilt or the shame about the struggle. What you need is some support support. You have high expectations of showing up as a different parent, right? So that's why you feel guilt and shame because you're not meeting your own expectations. But instead of feeling these emotions that aren't really helping you, look at how you can resource yourself. And so something like a membership can give you ongoing resources. And what I love about my membership is we have weekly office hours. So I show up there for an hour a week with whoever's available, and they can bring their most challenging parenting questions. So it's like having a parenting coach in your pocket for on a weekly basis. Obviously, memberships are much more affordable than one-on-one parent coaching. And there's a place and time for one-on-one coaching. If you have like something that you're really stuck on, you need to like untangle it really like kind of with more one-on-one focus, but the group meetings are with the other community members. So it's nice to have a community of other people that are trying to parent the same way as you. And we'll include the link here for them, but they can try it for free. We have monthly master classes as well. All of my previous summits, Raising the Resilient Child and Self-Compassion for Peaceful Parenting, are also in the library for the membership. And any workshops that I do are included in the membership once they're archived. And so, yeah, it's just a community that has resources for supporting you on your journey in your parenting.
Oh, I love that because community is clutch. You know, we
Yeah.
don't do this alone. There's a reason why we say it takes a village. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a fantastic offer. Go take her up on it. Go find that membership. Go find your mom club.
Yeah.
Um, there's also a fantastic 6-week course that you have, right, for self-compassion
Mhm.
parenting. And for those people that want to upgrade to the VIP pass, if you've grabbed it already, you get that first module for free. And if you would like that first module for free, go grab that VIP pass because not only do you get Diana's amazing module, you also get other amazing speaker bonuses. And you get to keep these talks forever. So you can come back
Yeah.
and keep learning because I know every time I come back to these discussions and talks, I learn something new. You know, it's the
Mm-hmm.
same
Mm-hmm.
discussion, but yet we focus and pay attention to different parts and pull different nuggets. So go grab that. The VIP pass link is in the email as well as below this video. So,
Mm-hmm.
anything else you would like to share with our mamas before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I think I would just say that um, if you would like to kind of delight back in your parenting and begin to delight in your child more often, it starts with you learning to delight in yourself. We talk a lot about self-care, you know, and like there's some negative connotations with like, oh, self-care, who's got time for that? But it's not even like you have to go do an activity. Delighting in yourself is like this emotional, like being on your own side and giving yourself a high five when you do a good job. Like nobody else has to do it. You can do this for yourself. Like turn towards yourself, like you would cheer your child on. And so it's really kind of a foreign concept, delighting in yourself. And again, even me saying it, it probably sounds like, oh, that is so self-focused. But like, where do you think the delight that you want to have for your child comes from?
Mhm.
Where do you think it's coming from? It's like the spring goes deep in the earth. The water has to come from the roots. Like, where is it? What's the source of this place? And if you feel like you're struggling to find delight in your parenting and your child, consider that the first place to start would be to give yourself some nourishment, nourish your own self so that you can nourish other people. It comes so much more naturally. It doesn't feel like it's forced then because it's just a natural outpouring of your own cup. It's like your cup is full and now it's overflowing. And now you're giving to others freely without feeling resentment that you're doing everything for everyone, you know?
Yeah, no, I think self-compassion, it just needs to happen, right? It's also celebrating the little wins. We often focus on like we're not doing this, this, and this. We're just trained to focus on the negative, right? But there are
Right.
so many things we do right as moms, no matter who you are. We're all
Hmm.
trying our best. We're all learning by you being here, right? By people being here.
Yeah.
It means you
Yeah.
want to learn. It means you want to be a better mom. And that's a huge win in itself. So thank you for being
Yes.
here, Diana,
Yeah.
and thank you for being
Yeah.
here,
Thank you.
everyone. It's always such a joy, Diana, to talk to you.
It
Such great
is. It is.
perspective on self-compassion for ourselves. We're just trying to be the best mom we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thank
I
you
love that.
again, everyone. Go
Yeah.
to the
Thank you.
challenge. Let us know how it went in the Facebook group, or feel free to reach out to either of us. All of Diana's links, information is below this video. And be sure to come back for more amazing summit speakers.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
All right. And record.